This conference will now be recorded.
We're unmuted, and so we're ready to rock and roll. Any comments, Roger?
Mr. President, we received no public comment via mail or email.
Okay, good, thank you. Any requests or additions or deletions to the agenda? Not very many people over there tonight. You know, it kind of looks void.
We should state for the meeting record that the three of you are here in person. Director Clark is logged in, and she is in the service territory. Director Jacobson was making an attempt to log in, and he would call in if he could not get the app to work for him, but he is not in the service territory.
Okay.
And General Counsel Foster is remoting in from vacation. He's squeezing us in. So
And we're still not going to allow him to vote.
That would be consistent with the bylaws. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Old business? Hearing none. Consent agenda.
Mr. President, I make a motion that we accept the consent agenda as written.
Okay. Moved and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Is Connie going to vote?
We asked about that.
Director Clark, can you hear us okay? Or General Counsel Foster or Tisha Haynes, could one of you just respond that you can hear us okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much.
So, but no Connie.
Connie's unmuted now. Director Karp, did you plan on voting tonight remotely? It's okay. You guys do have a quorum.
Okay. Well, let's just go ahead.
Okay.
All right. Okay.
And this is Director Jacobson. I got on by phone.
Sure.
But you are out of the district, right?
Correct.
That's my understanding.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Wayne. All right. Moving on. 2021 quarter four report. I think that's Roger.
Very proud to say that 2021 finished strong. The summary memorandum and associated performance indicators and dashboards were provided for in the board packet. If there were any specific questions, staff or I would be happy to respond. Otherwise, again, 2021 continues to be an excellent year for the district and our community, and we'll let the results speak for themselves.
Any questions or comments from the rest of the board? Good news. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to new business. Review of financial reserves. Is that you, Harvey?
Yep.
So annually, usually in February, we'll take a review of our reserves. And our reserves are really there to basically cover the district for unplanned events. So we have a financial plan that we put together that we refer to as the budget that the board passed in December. And we also have financial metrics that continue to monitor that progress, as you're going to see in Q4 financial results. But in the event that there are unforeseen events, we have money set aside for that in the form of reserves. And in those reserves, we have a policy section in the financial policy that governs what that reserve is for, what it's to be used for, and how to replenish it if we ever do use that. So we do an annual resizing of our review of our reserves to ensure that they're proper, they're not too much and they're not too little. And that's to ensure that we either don't have sufficient funds or sufficient coverage, or that we're not sitting on a treasure trove of cash and we're not doing that and creating a burden on our ratepayers. So that's what this is intended to cover, is just do a refresh of what it is. It's based, because it's prospective for 22, it's going to look at it based on our budgeted financial metrics. So we look at a couple items. The first one that we look at is working capital. So working capital is intended to cover or fund expenditures for everything except purchase power costs. So that's going to be our labor, our wages. It's going to be our outside services. It's going to be A&G. It's going to fund all that other activity. And so what we do is, per the policy, we basically will set aside in a cap for working capital 16%, which actually equals 2 months of any given year. So about 60 days of budgeted activity for operating expense, not including purchase power costs. Currently, we have $3 million in there to cover working capital. When we do the calculation of that, and we look at, basically, we've got about 20, that total number that's based off of is $24,871,000. We need 16% of that. So if we take that number, that 24.9 million times 0.16, we end up with just under $4 million. So per the sizing and per our policy, we really should have about $4 million in working capital. So that leaves us with a deficit of about $1 million that we would recommend we would up that number from $3 million to $4 million. Contingency and emergency is really just that. It's contingency for other unforeseen events that are not covered by other reserves. And we have just set that at a flat $1 million. We don't have a sizing criteria for that. It's just money that we set aside. The critical thing about that the board needs to know is that money is set aside as a reserve and not baked into budgets. So when we budgets are done without contingencies built into them. They're based off of what we see as our actual anticipated expenditures. So there's no, I think I need some more money here just in case. All of that is filtered out of the budget and consequently filtered out of our rates and is set aside in a reserve strictly set aside for that. So that's that $1 million. The other thing that we do is we have money set aside for our 2 hydro projects, and we basically look at their annual operating budget, effectively 50% of their annual operating budget. So for the combined for McNary and the district share of McNary and the Dalles North Fishway, it comes up to about $2.2 million. 50% of that is $1.1 million. So we have $1 million set aside for that. We would look to replenish or up that by $100,000 for our policy. The next one is our rate stabilization fund. Really, this is really money that is set aside per our bond covenant, is where it really is established. It's been around, it precedes our bond covenant, but it's something that's featured in our bond covenant that says, if in the event that we need to make some type of movement for an unplanned expenditure, we've got $3 million to cover a rate increase, or basically defer a rate increase. And that's assurance to our bondholders that we have funds more than sufficient to cover our debt service burdens. We also have another debt service restricted fund that's also out there, but this is also in supplement to that. So the bond covenant specifically calls out $3 million. We currently have 4.6 in there. So we have more than what we currently need. And that's been brought up to the board on a few occasions when we've anticipated needing to defer a rate increase or postpone a rate increase for the sake of our ratepayers, that we could use those funds to supplement or offset that deficit. We so far have been fortunate. We haven't had to use it, so it continues to just remain there. So that's always at the board's discretion if they wanted to lower that to $3 million. We just haven't taken action at this point to lower it from 4.6 to 3 million. For capital is for capital, we have a calculation that is 2.2% of our current year plant in service. Our plant in service at this point is just over $100 million in assets. 2% of that puts us at about $2 million. We currently have $1 million in there. And so that puts us about $1 million behind. This is just for staff recommendation at this point. We're going to be making significant capital investments this year, and we're trying to manage. We've got just over $2 million left in our borrowed funds to be able to apply to those capital expenditures for 2022. We recommend not withdrawing $1 million out of our cash to set aside, but to continue to let that at $1 million, knowing that we're going to be making substantial contributions to our capital out of our rate funded so that we don't have to borrow money. And we have the leisure of being able to rebuild that at a future time. So part of the recommendation that I would give later on for the March board meeting would be we just keep that at $1 million, but that is just a staff recommendation. If the board decides to, they can always move that up. And then finally, we have our market security and purchase power costs. That guards us against, what that's intended to do is to create either a security in the event of failure to perform on one of our customers, or because purchase power, that we purchase power for a significant amount of purchase power for some of our customers on their behalf. If there's ever a dispute or a failure to perform on that, this is money set aside to cover that and shield our other ratepayers from the effect of that, or create that buffer. What we currently do is we set that at 30 days cash based off of it's going to be the higher of either our market security needed or 30 days outstanding of our purchase power budget. Right now, that comes up to, the higher amount comes up to $3.9 million. We currently have $3.5 million in there. We would look for the board to, not in this board meeting, but in the subsequent board meeting, to initiate and see if we can move that up to another $400,000. So the sum of these on our next slide, bing, bing. Sarah, move it. There you go. Thanks, Sarah. So this just shows currently in a nice side by side, what is covered in green are things that our rate reserve policy doesn't actually have us move. Some of them are just established by bond covenant. So the rate stabilization fund by bond covenant, the bond reserve fund by bond covenant, and the construction funds are is basically the balance that's left over from our Kashmir Valley Bank line of credit that we use for capital investment. We don't size that. That's just money that is available. Our OPEB liability is just an amount that we have out there to apply to that amount. And then we have customer deposits. That's just for our customer deposits based on our covenants with our customers and our customer service policy. So the ones in yellow are the ones that we actively look to manage by this policy. And so you can see the 3 proposed changes there for working capital to be increased by $1 million, hydro operations by $100,000, and then market security purchase power to increase by $400,000. The current recommended versus current change would be to increase that reserve by $1.5 million per our reserve policy. So on the next slide, is just staff will follow up with the board when the fund reserve changes are available, because all of that money is not available. We can cover $1 million of that right now through uncommitted reserves. We would look to follow that and increase that based on the board's decision. Once that's happening, we would look for the board to make the following increases, and then defer the increase the capital reserve to $2 million until next year. And so this is just an information only at this point. We would look to bring it back before the board in March for action. But I'm just going to go ahead and throw it open at this point since it's just information only. Any questions by this?
This just dawned on me. We have $23,600,000 approximately. Is that cash sitting somewhere?
It is.
It's earning us some interest, and what's
it
going
is.
on? Where's that interest going?
Okay, great question. So the money's in a couple different pieces. Part of it's in Part of it is in, most of it is in right now our local government investment pool with the state of Oregon, Oregon short-term funds. It meets all of our safety requirements. It is very stable. We have assurance, so it meets our state regulatory compliance for making sure that we don't have it in speculative funds. It's currently earning us 0.45%. The other option we have, I know that sounds terrible. It is terrible. The other part that we do is we have the option to be able to invest in short-term securities that are rated either at a single A or better credit rating, and we can go out as far as 18 months on that. Up to this point, we've been at 0.45, and until recently, before inflation, investment in two-year securities, Treasury securities, was running at 0.16. So the offerings that we had from our brokers for short-term securities was anywhere from 0.2 to 0.3%. And we were sitting at a guaranteed 0.45, so we just have not made any investments. So we've got one that's going to mature here next month for $1 million. That'll mature and that'll go away. I've been in contact with our broker. Right now, we could be looking at investment opportunities at, believe it or not, it's hard to believe you get excited about anything something over 1%. So we're currently 0.45% in our local government investment pool. There's starting to become opportunities to look at an 18-year security that could get us up to 1 to 1.25%.
Well, I hear you, Harvey, and I agree with everything you're doing to date. At this point, with the volatility of the stock market, I would not want to do much. I don't care about the 1% versus 0.5. We've got to hang on to at least for this year what we've got. In my opinion, it's too dangerous, I think, to be looking for another 0.5%, particularly this year. I do have another question.
Sure, absolutely.
When you're looking at that 1.5 million, at what point during this year would that actually occur? I mean, do we do that in March?
Well, if the board, I'll bring it back. It'll be brought before the board in March. The board will take a look at it. If the board decides that's what they choose, that's what they would like to pursue, we would move that money as it becomes available. Right now, we've got about 1.1 million in uncommitted reserves. It's money that's sitting out there, so we could fund a large portion of it, but clearly we're going to do that as funds become available. So, yeah.
Worst case, the 4.6 that's sitting in rate stabilization, the difference between that 1.6 versus the 1.5 to move it to the other accounts. We could do that. The staff recommendation is the better choice of let those things accrue and then move them when appropriate, as appropriate. It doesn't need to be a day one fix.
Totally
correct. So to Roger's point, we've already, Roger K. So to General Manager Roger's point, we already have 1.6 million in there that could cover that, but we're looking to add on top of that and not touch that 1.6. So to his point, excellent point, it's already out there, but we're looking to do it from our other reserves and just build that up and leave that 1.6 out there for another time such that we may need it for rate change. Good point.
Any other questions?
Okay.
Anything else to add, Harvey?
No, that's it.
Thanks, Harvey.
All right. Thank you. All right.
No, those are.
Any questions from the?
I sent a message. Got it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just saw the little bubble and.
Thank you. I'm monitoring. Thank you.
Okay, when in doubt, watch the bubble, right?
Yes.
All right, let's move on to Northwest, Compensation 101, job descriptions presentation.
You can skip it. If you guys want to go right on number 3, we can.
Oh, no.
It's too late.
All right, I'm going to sit back here so I can see when I need to have Sarah change the screen for me. So back in October, you guys approved the pay equity policy here at the PUD. So with that, we have started our process of making sure that we are compliant with that. The first step on that is going through all of our job descriptions and making sure that those meet state standards, local standards, and also what we're doing here at the PUD. So Sarah, if you want to go ahead and.
Is it actually Sarah or is it Jeff?
It's Sarah. Yep, she's actually behind there.
Thank you.
So the reasons for going through all of our job descriptions and updating them are compliance with the Oregon Equity Pay Act, making sure that our job descriptions have the same language throughout the job descriptions. We're using consistent language, and it has the same format for all of our job descriptions. As well as it is going to encourage employee input and engagement into their job descriptions as well as part of the process, which I'll talk about in just a second. And then supporting the job description life cycle and all the places of the employee that it touches and throughout the employee's history. And then it also provides a guide and a process when new positions are created or there's updates to the position. Sarah?
Next slide, please. I jinxed it when I asked it. You guys remember this is Kara,
Yes.
correct? Okay.
Okay, I will talk about the next slide. It's just discussing the process for the job description. So we've already started the process. You guys approved the policy. The next was to create the template, which has been created, and I'll show you what that looks like at the end here. And then last month we provided a training for all of our managers on the job descriptions, because obviously they're an integral part of creating job descriptions. And so we administered that to all of our supervisors last month. Right now, I'm in the process of taking all of the current job descriptions in whatever template or format those are in, and putting them into the new format and sending those out to the supervisors and having them make edits to those. And then after they're done making those edits, they send it to the employees and have the employees comment on and make changes if necessary. And that's kind of the engagement part of the job descriptions for the employees, ensuring that everything that they do is actually in their job description. After that, I'll do a final edit on the job description and then put those out on our DealGov website, which is where we do all of our recruitment from. So the final job descriptions will be posted there for our staff and managers to access when they need to. The goal is to have this project completed by the end of Q1, and that will allow right at the time that we'll be doing ending performance evaluations and pay changes for the next year. That is the goal. That's the goal Cindy's given me anyway. All the positions will be benchmarked after the job descriptions are completed. And then when those are all done, we'll be doing a kind of organizational wide pay. We'll be looking at everybody's pay and making sure that everybody is where they're supposed to be at and falls in line with the Oregon Equity Pay Act. No, you're good. That's okay. So if you want to go to the job description life cycle.
This wasn't supposed
It never supposed to happen this way, right? That's okay. So historically, the job description has really been one of those tools where an employee shows up first day, they look at it, they read it, they sign it, it gets put away in their folder and never looked at again. That really has changed, and it kind of has created a life cycle of its own. So not only do we use it, next slide, Sarah, or Jeff, sorry. So we use it for recruitment. The job description is actually what we post on our website when we're going out to, whether it's our website or job boards or wherever we're advertising those at. It really is the first impression of the outside world into who we are as an organization. And interestingly enough, Indeed did a survey this last year that showed that 52% of applicants will actually decide whether they want to apply or not by the quality of the job description that's posted. So being a rural community, we can't afford to lose 50% of our applicant pool just off of not having a good advertisement. So really focusing there. And then it obviously plays into hiring, which candidates are the best qualified and who meets those qualifications. You know, our required requirements versus our preferred. And then obviously it plays into compensation. We do all of our survey benchmarking off of the job description. We go out and we compare like jobs in the market and make sure that we are comparing apples to apples when we go out to the market. So we participate in the salary surveys as well as gather our information from there, knowing how to benchmark our jobs so that we pay the employees appropriately for the jobs that they're doing. And then it also plays into performance management. So it sets the expectations both technically and culturally. And that's the other thing when we're doing recruitment, it's easy to pick through a resume and say, yeah, these people qualify, but do they culturally meet what we want here and what we expect here at PUD? So those standards are also within the job description. And then it also touches workers' comp and any kind of medical or leave accommodation. So anytime that we have a workers' comp claim, the first thing that the workers' comp adjusters ask for is the job description. They want to know what they were doing and if they were doing something they weren't supposed to be doing and why. So they'll ask for the job description, but the providers who see them, who release them to full duty or to light duty will also look at those and decide whether they can be released or not, depending on those physical requirements. Next slide. Will it not come up?
I don't know how to make, oh, you just need the new job description?
Yeah.
Yep.
I think she had to pull it up. It wouldn't work in presentation mode, I guess.
There's a folder.
The audience is still seeing the life cycle of this FYI.
That's what I'm talking about, yep. So this is one of our completed job descriptions that Jeff was my guinea pig for this. So it displays pretty easy layout. The general summary of the job, so it encompasses a little bit of every part of the job description, what this person is going to be doing overall. The supervisory or technical responsibilities, so whether they oversee any employees or if they are responsible for any type of technical training. They might be training new hires, but they may not be overseeing them, and supervising them. And then the type of supervision that they receive. Do they work independently? Does their supervisor give them a task and tell them each task to do? Or do they kind of have some more discretion within their job? And then qualifications, again, we have our required, what we absolutely want, minimum that we want to have for that job, but then also listing the preferred requirements. And the preferred requirements would come in when you're trying to make a hiring decision and you can defend that this person had more certifications and that's why we hired them, or had more years of experience. Our skills, knowledge, and abilities, those are pretty standard on any job description, listing what the skills and knowledge they need to have to do the job. And then the essential functions down below, those are obviously just the main things that they do while they're here. And then keep going down. Yep.
Jeff, can you get that on the screen?
It's not on the screen?
It's not on what's being broadcast.
Is it up there? No.
Oh. Sorry about that.
Sarah lost her internet and she's
Yeah,
getting everything back up. But
I need to find the,
we should continue. It will all be in the board packet when it is updated, and we'll ensure we can send out messages that the materials are available. Apologies for that. This is what happens when you try to ensure that anyone can access, at the same time as we're trying to isolate folks for health reasons and ensure transparency. So we will work through it. Thank you.
Yes. So just some of the new sections that are in the job description that were not necessarily in the old job descriptions is job scope and specific effort. So these are the complexity and the decision making that goes into that position. Are they just working within an established budget, or are they actually creating that budget and then having other people work with it inside that budget? What is the impact of the decisions that they make on the organization, whether it's personnel related, whether it's budget related, and the mental effort that goes into that. And then the interpersonal contacts of who do they interact with? Are they interacting with internal customers, external customers, vendors, those type of things. So all of that is in compliance with the Oregon Equity Pay Act to determine where we place people and how we pay them. So if you remember from the Oregon Equity Pay Act, regardless of what the job title is, if the jobs require the same skills, knowledge, and ability, even if they're doing different functions, they have to be paid the same or on the same scale. So that's what we are doing with starting with the job description. Any questions?
Sarah, thank you for muscling through that. That was not the optimal.
That's okay.
Didn't give me an opportunity to say that, but that's okay. I agree with you 100%. I think you did a great job. It makes sense, and I understand where you're coming from and where we're going. So, thank you.
Yes, thank you. Cindy, did you have anything to add?
No, I don't. You did a great job, even with the technical difficulties, and managed to cover everything. I would tell the board, you could probably consider this the first class in compensation. Eventually, as we get our systems in better place, design our structures a little bit more tightly, we'll bring another, we'll call it an education session, a training session to the board to let you know where we're at and why we're there.
Thank you very much.
Great, thanks. Okay, moving on. Northwest River Partners Pro LSRD campaign.
Sarah, those would be the slides that I sent you today. There we go. Okay, so yes, I'm here to talk today about where things are and what things are happening regarding the ongoing movement to breach or save, depending on which side you are, the Lower Snake River dams. Next slide, please. Did we lose Sarah? There we go. There is a little bit of new urgency in the matter when it comes to communicating and supporting the do not breach the Lower Snake River dams. This timeline was actually created by Kurt Miller at Northwest River Partners, and he sent it to me to share. And I'm going to run through it a little bit quickly in the interest of brevity. I'm open to answer what questions I can. You might say that the most recent chain of events started in February of 2021, when Representative Simpson released his plan to breach the Lower Snake River dams after spending $33.5 billion to mitigate the costs of breaching those dams. It was really the first time anyone had really attempted to address what those costs and what those risks would be. That unfortunate program or proposal is at this point dead in the water because the necessary budget did not pass. In April of 2021, an article was released that listed the Snake River as the most endangered river, with no science to back it up. It was strictly a political article, but that article received national attention. In May of 2021, the affiliated tribes of Northwest Indians, or ATNI, voted to support the concept of Representative Simpson's plan with some additional measures. And again, this was a support of the concept. That vote is being misrepresented as unanimous tribal support for breaching the dams. In 2021, the Columbia Basin Collaborative of 4 states was announced. Unfortunately, 19 of the 21 seats on the collaborative were given to supporters of either Simpson's plan or of just breaching dams. After expressing support for the collaborative, Governor Brown of Oregon in July of 2021 filed a motion for injunctive relief. You may remember there were a number of editorials and articles and comments about how that really didn't support the collaborative plan that had already been proposed. It called for spill, of course, which would have had terrible consequences for the region. So in October of 2021, there was a litigation settlement. It's a temporary settlement that actually ends July 31st of 2022 that allows for some backroom negotiation with the Biden administration. Again, it's the groups advocating for breaching the dams, but it is a pause and it gives a little bit of time. Also in October 2021, Senator Murray and Governor Inslee of Washington announced their own process to look at whether or not Representative Simpson's plan could work, whether or not the dams could be breached. And it's very concerning for a number of reasons. Sorry, let me pull up my notes here. It asked the wrong question. It has shifted the conversation from should they be breached to could they be breached? And well, the short answer is yeah, they could. But that may not be the right answer. It may not be the right policy. It ignores the science of salmon survival, whether or not breaching would actually help those species come back. It ignores the decarbonization needs of the Pacific Northwest and the goals that we have and the work that is being done for decarbonization. It completely lacks transparency and any legislative established standards, and it essentially leaves out other Northwest states. This latest step is why there is a bit more urgency. There is a belief that the November 2022 midterm elections will result in a power shift in at least one chamber of the legislature. So the Murray-Inslee plan, they've given themselves a deadline of July of 2022 to get out their findings so that I'm assuming so that other steps can be made and the push can continue before there's any change in the power in the Capitol. Next slide, please. So one of the things that is coming about is you've already heard, many pieces of communication would be best described as misrepresentation, whether it's a vote, whether it's a fact, whether it's an event. Even locally, there was a editorial recently in the Columbia Community Connection with this headline, the success of the Condo Dam removal on fish populations highlights potential benefits of removing the lower Snake River dams. Next slide, please. The problem with this editorial is at no point in the article did it mention that the Condo Dam has absolutely no fish passage measure whatsoever. No ladders, no nothing. And so there are a number of quotes in this editorial, again, pushing for, it worked on by removing the Condit Dam. Why not remove the lower Snake River dams? The bottom left quote by American Rivers is one that I'd like to focus on a little bit. Again, they flat out state there's nothing like tearing down a dam to bring a river back to life. Next slide, please. Interestingly enough, on their website, on the bottom right-hand corner, We have restored fish and wildlife habitat by tearing down more than 200 dams on rivers nationwide. That is their goal, is to tear down rivers. So we have editorials out there. We have articles picking up editorials that aren't giving all the facts. They're, of course, telling their story and shaping the message to what they want to do. The next slide. So the plan is Northwest River Partners has been advocating for the Lower Snake River dams through editorials, speaking engagements, and meetings with stakeholders, legislators, groups, organizations like ourselves, utilities like ourselves. They've also been working very hard the last couple of years to change minds, and it's been working with the Our Power is Water campaign. As you know, we've supported that campaign. They are currently developing and implementing a strategic campaign to counter the misrepresentations and advocate for not breaching the Lower Snake River dams. We as a district have been supporting the campaign through social media and through our own government affairs work, but we need to do more. Next slide, please. Why do we need to do more? Why do we have a dog in this fight? Because we have millions of dollars invested in hydro generation resources, for one. Almost a little over 16.5 million plant asset value at the Dalles, and our portion is a little over. That's just in the assets, just what's invested in the facilities. Next slide, please. Those investments generate a great deal of power, a great deal of good for our community, for our customers. The contract value for the Dalles output is a little over 1.7 million per year, estimated for 22 and 23. Kurt explained to me that Power Resources uses what the McNary energy output how much the McNary energy output reduces the Bonneville load shaping charges for us. So essentially, we gained energy with a value of $857,000 in 2021. Since the load shaping rates changed in October, we estimate over $1 million in 2022. For perspective, the total retail sales of the district of electricity are forecast to be at 1.2 billion kilowatt hours for 2022. We get 41 million kilowatt hours per year from the Dalles for output, and approximately 40 million kilowatt hour per year from McNary. That's a huge value for our customer, for our district. The next slide. This campaign is going to be intensive. It's going to be strategic. It's going to require some backing. These are some of the campaign contributors so far. They have committed both a base sponsorship or donation, however you want to put it, as well as matching dollars. So other organizations that contribute to this campaign, these four will actually match those funds in some way. So the next slide, please. So I'm here tonight to ask the board to support a campaign contribution by the district of $150,000. This is an unbudgeted expense, but staff is confident that we can reprogram other funds to help cover this. 150,000 may sound like a lot. It's certainly more than we've contributed to these campaigns in the past. But I did want to point out that 150,000 is a 0.5% of the district's total hydro plant assets, and it is a little over 5% of the annual value of the energy generated with those assets each year. Another way to put it, it's kind of a drop in the bucket for a very, very important campaign. For lack of a better term, the opposition in these stamp wars, in the Lower Snake River Dam movement, they've been very, very upfront that if they can succeed in breaching the lower Snake River dams, that makes the next dam that they tackle that much easier to get breached. Something that we want to avoid. We also, as a district, recognize that the costs of breaching those dams in reliability, in power prices, in irrigation, in any of the jobs supported through those dams is a significant cost to communities that really cannot afford those costs. And that is why I am making this ask today.
Any comments or questions?
Mr. President, I totally support this idea. And 5 years ago, when I first got on the board and started going to meetings in Portland, I always knew at some point it's going to take this kind of an action to stop the misinformation that we've seen. And I would totally support it. And when you're ready, I'll make a motion. The only thing I would like to see along with this is our partners in OPUDA do the same thing.
I hadn't thought of that, but that's a good point because it's going to affect them too. Yeah, we've been hearing about this for the time I've been on the board, and I agree. At some point, we have to step up to the plate and put our money where our mouth is. And if we don't, we're going to lose those dams. And those are hydroelectric is a green power, and you don't just replace that with windmills and solar plants. So I think we need to protect those.
Mr. President, the only other thing I think we need to potentially look at is if the board agrees, this may not be the first and only time we do this to get the result that we need. And she didn't bring that up, but it's like, I don't see this as just a one-time shot. Maybe it is and we get lucky, but probably won't be.
I think we have a pretty determined opponents, on the other side of this. And we are in the situation where we don't have a choice. I agree. We need to contribute this. And if we need to support it, your idea, Roger, of getting OPUDA involved is a very good one. We need to put pressure on our other brethren or sister.
I know that Director Karp is listening. Maybe at the next OPUDA meeting, she could put that on the agenda, showing, assuming that it passes, that boil it down a little bit, explain what we're doing, and really make a push for it. And with that, I'll make a motion that we do accept Cindy Gentry's comment here first.
I just wanted to say that Director Jacobson put in the chat that acknowledges that he can't vote, but he's in total favor of the proposal.
Thank you.
If I may, to respond to the second thing that you mentioned, Director Howe, I've discussed this briefly with Lana. I haven't had a chance to discuss it with Harvey or with Roger, but I really think that campaigns such as these need a budget line next year.
Mr. Chairman, may I make a comment?
I would agree, Cindy. I think that one would be that's a separate issue for tonight. I think we ought to just be hopeful that this will go through and then again bring that up at a different point. Not disagreeing. I'm just saying I don't think they should be together.
General Counsel Foster.
Yeah, Mr. Foster, go ahead.
Yeah, my comment would be, since this is not budgeted for, I think there needs to be an explanation more than what's just written on the presentation, where the funds are going to come from. I think you've got a fiduciary obligation to look at that. I'm not sure what unfulfilled FTE position they're talking about not filling, what outside service report prioritization means. They're pretty general terms where you don't literally have a budgeted amount for this. I'm not suggesting the board can't do it. I just think you need a little more information from Ms. Gentry with respect to that.
Just for transparency's sake, that verbiage came from me, and we're carrying FTE positions that aren't filled that we have budget for, and it was my task to go find the dollars, and I just didn't think it was necessary for her to do a PERT code budget line item listing for this presentation. We needed to know if you guys were supportive or not, and it's up to me to go find the money.
That makes sense. Makes sense to you guys? Okay, so we'll proceed with the motion and then leave it up, assuming the motion will pass, we'll leave it up to you to proceed with the funds and make sure we satisfy Mr. Foster's concern. Okay? Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Second.
Okay. And any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by aye.
All right.
Aye. It's unanimous. Power of 3.
If you want Director Karp to weigh in, since she's here,
Is she, yeah, if she's available.
or she comes off of mute or not. She sent me a text that she was able to, but wasn't able to get through before. Director Karp, are you there? I can see her, which is,
Tell her thumbs up.
Yeah, give her, do a non-verbal.
okay. Well, we gave it a shot, but
That's okay. We have a 3-0.
thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Cindy. Did you hear what was happening?
Yes, I do appreciate this.
Okay, great. Thanks for your presentation. We need to do this badly. Okay, where are we going to? I think we're going to Resolution 1-2022.
Hello, good evening.
Here.
I did, I snuck right up here. So before you is a revision to Section 42 of the Customer Service Policies. A little bit of summary background on Section 42. So it was adopted in 2014 by the Board of Directors and added as Section 42 for facility site evaluation requests for prospective large customers. And so really the idea behind that is that what it did is formulated a set of guidelines and processes for both the district staff and prospective customers to be able to submit an inquiry that with regards to service that exceeded a 1 megawatt threshold. So what that did in terms of having those guidelines in place allowed staff to be able to, in essence, have a queue at their disposal to be able to take these requests in and then prioritize them based off of the area within our service territory that the inquiry was coming from or interested in, the size with regards to that capacity request, and then allow the district the time and resources to be able to analyze to see if we could facilitate that kind of connection. So the section has operated successfully since then. What we're finding, when I say we, engineering and operations department, we're now getting another wave or large base of customers that are inquiring that want to interconnect or have services that are less than 1 megawatt and have the same characteristics that we would consider very similar to either cryptocurrency or data center type high load factor computing infrastructure. A lot of the customers don't know in terms of the requirements that they're looking for, either their perspective in terms of the location, and what that does is it's taking a lot of resource time to meet with these individuals out in the field and or speak with them over the phone, conversing through email. So met with Jeff and several of the engineers in the engineering and operations department. And what we would like to do is add some language to the facility site evaluation request process that really what that does is we're we're not only saying anything over 1 megawatt in terms of inquiries, but anything less than that have characteristics that are intended to serve high load factors such as computing infrastructure or data centers. So really what we're doing is that we're capturing these other customers that they want to interconnect into our service territory, and that's great. We want to help them. We want to try to facilitate that, but at the same time, we want to make sure that they go through our current process and guidelines, and making sure that when we're presented with that information, it's as complete as possible. They have interest in it, and then we can provide our resources back to it to evaluate, to make sure that we have the capacity, that we're not taking from our existing customers or future developments within our service territory to be able to accommodate these requests. So, so before you is the kind of the addition removal from Section 42. I'd like to strike out part for prospective large customers, because we have existing customers that are inquiring as well. So it's not just prospective, it's existing customers. And then just to add that additional language within that section, and continue to help our customers.
Comments, questions?
Well, I have a question. I guess I'm not really seeing how the rubber's hitting the road here. Is this are we charging them to go out and look at this, or is it just a time issue that, I guess, what are the nuts and bolts of this? You got somebody that says, hey, I'm thinking about this, and you guys go out there and kick some dirt clods and talk about it? Or you want somebody to actually fill out paperwork and then come in and...
So I'll let Jeff and provide the details to that.
So these are unusual loads, right? These aren't typical residential or typical commercial loads. What happens is people come in without a plan, and they say, I want X megawatts, which is some unfeasible number.
Mm-hmm.
And we're like, well, how do I design for that? And there's no site plan, they don't have property yet. And so they ask us a lot of questions. They want us to meet with them, advise them, give them guidance, and sort of help them do their own design effort up front. And so what we're trying to do is not make it difficult for customers. We're just trying to make sure customers are serious before they come to us, and they understand, they know what they want and where they want it. We're certainly willing to have phone conversations with people and advise them on areas of town that might be better to be situated than others. We're trying to eliminate a lot. There are just a lot of these calls from, as prices of new technology like cryptocurrency go up, we get a lot of calls from interested people, and they're trying to skirt our existing policy by saying, I don't want a megawatt, I want 0.9 megawatts. Mm-hmm. So I don't want it. We're just trying to make it.
Just formalizing the process a little bit more, so we're not doing all the work for them. They've got to do some of their own legwork.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're expanding it to encompass everything below the 1 megawatt that customers have been.
Especially when it hits customer service as the customer-facing piece, and then it turns into work for engineering and operations, and then power resources is brought in, because can we source these magical loads?
Well, and then they say, oh, thanks, but I'm not going to do it. So you've spent a lot of time and effort and money for nothing. So I understand.
That's a great paraphrase. Great paraphrase. Okay, any other questions or comments? All right, entertain a motion.
I don't have that particular one in front.
You can just simply say, resolution number 01-2022.
Move it. Make a motion for the resolution 01-2022 that we approve it.
Second.
Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Do you think we should read that? I guess.
I believe that once it's included in the packet, our needs are.
We're okay. So we don't need to go through that process with the other two also.
Concur.
Got it.
Thank you.
That will work.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Just offer feedback. Director Karp is listening, and she just can't get off mute. So it's okay. She's paying attention, and she's on board with what you're doing.
Good. It's nice to have that feedback. All right. You're up.
So, before you is resolution 02-0222. It's really about the board of directors for consideration tonight to authorize and certify that staff can enter into an easement agreement with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers at the McNary Fishway project. So as you probably recall, the district has been working on a project since roughly 2012 to address some of the safety issues related to the deteriorated steps and the inoperability of an elevator that our staff uses as a primary ingress egress from our facility. As time has went on in 2019, the board of directors did authorize staff to negotiate services with McMillan Jacobs, who's the engineering business who would help the Power Resources Department determine alternatives to addressing the state of the stairs and the elevator. Part of that process also required that the district request a construction permit from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. And in that process culminates in an easement agreement that they have presented the district as of today. And so we're requesting that the board of directors certify staff, in this case it would be Roger in his capacity as general manager, to execute the easement. And so by certifying that he has the delegated authorities from the governing board to execute that easement is really what the Army Corps of Engineers is requesting from the board of directors today.
This has been a long time coming. I used to have nightmares about this. It's been so long. It's absolutely been horrendous how they have drugged their feet. And it's very depressing, quite frankly. But we're to the point now. We just need to pass this resolution and we're going forward.
Yeah, so I would say that the signing of the easement does, it authorizes us the ability to construct. It does not put us in an obligation to construct. So as we're working through some of the details, this is just
step a lot closer than we've ever been.
It is. And, I can just say that given the fact that this requires the commander's approval, and that commander will change out every 2 to 3 years, you may have to go through this process again with a new commander in the district. And so I think time is of the essence. And if you're comfortable, I certainly would recommend that signature.
Any questions or comments?
Well, I'm not opposed to this at all. At the last board meeting, we talked about this, and we talked with Kurt about wanting to get Clickitat onto this easement, and I see Clickitat's not on this easement. And I think, was there some?
I think the voices from above are about to weigh in.
I'm happy to respond to that, Greg, if it would be helpful. Clickitat declined at this point to execute the easement with us. The Corps was willing to have us be the sole party to the easement, with the understanding from the Corps. What they've said is if in the future Clickitat wishes to be a participant in that, they don't have a problem with it. What it does is it creates for us a methodology of going forward with construction once we resolve the issue through dispute resolution as to the participation of Clickitat with the construction. So this is a first step, but may not be the last step, depending on what happens in the dispute resolution process.
Okay.
Thank you, Jim.
That clears it up.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Okay, I would entertain a motion for resolution number 02-2022.
I would move that we accept resolution 02-2022.
Second?
Any other comments or concerns? All right, all those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. That's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
very much.
Tony concurs via the text chat.
Okay, let's move on to resolution number 03-2022.
Natisha Fonene, Purchasing Specialist. It's been a while since I've been here, so thank you for having me. I have been jumping into offering assistance and help with other positions within the finance team while Ms. Otisha has been hard at work and taking the lead on the creation of our purchasing administrative regulation document, in addition to the policy revisions. We'd be interested in coming back before the board in a future meeting to present an update on how the new purchasing process is going and bring to you examples of how that's rolling out. With that, Otisha will share with you the proposed policy revisions.
Thanks, Natisha. I know you guys all see the policy changes in the board packet before you. We have no major changes. There's just one addition of the definition of a requisition and changing the language to LPTA, which is the lowest price technically acceptable for bidder proposals. There's also has been formatting of the document, but overall there's no major policy changes or word deletions. Do you guys have any questions?
All these red lines and that's nothing substantial.
A lot of work.
Well, it needed a lot of formatting and things like that, so.
Okay.
I was totally impressed by your process. That was not an easy process to go through. You ladies did a great job.
I would also jump in on that. I reviewed it a couple of times for both Otisha and Natisha, and I am highly complimentary of the work that they've done. They downplay it, but actually it was a significant job with an excellent result.
All of that, so perfect.
Okay. All right.
I entertain a motion that we accept resolution 03-2022.
Second.
This is kind of like beat and repeat here.
Don't have much option with three of us here.
Any other comments or questions coming before the board? All right, if not, all those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Okay, it is unanimous.
Tony concurs as well. Director.
I'd just like to say thanks to the staff for all three of those resolutions. Those are not easy things, so you have to get in there into the detail and do all that kind of work. And I know we know it's difficult, but thanks to all of you. Yeah, I need those back because we need to sign those. Roger Dodger's got to sign the first one. Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay, board reports. I'm going to insert a couple things after this. So let's go ahead with the Oregon OPUDA Association discussion. I have a piece of paper here since Connie was under the weather, and I'm just going to read from her typed out report for OPUDA. I was going to have Wayne do that tonight, but Wayne's not here. He can't respond. That's okay. That's worth it.
He smiled at you.
Okay, good. All right, OPUDA, January 20, 2022. I have a little problem here. I'm fogging up. You know, you get some masks that are really dense. Well, I have a dense mask. The legislature has made the decision to stay virtual except for floor votes. The session begins February 1 and constitutionally ends by March 7. One of the 2022 bills is the home cooling grants. This will be a grant program administered through ODO, and PUDAs will be eligible to apply. Broadband updates. So these are just sections of various components of the OPUDA process. Broadband update, PUDs already have the statutory authority to offer broadband or partner with a third party to offer the service. PUDs will still need to work with their corresponding cities to add on broadband services, which is wonderful. Next section. PNUC has an opening on their board for a representative from the PUDs. If anyone has a staff member they would like to suggest for this position, please forward that name to PNUC. Next. Former President Merle Gillespie passed the gavel over to the incoming president, Kurt Abbott. During Kurt's president's report, he suggests changing the monthly OPUDA meeting to the fourth Thursday of the month instead of the third Thursday of the month. Each PUD was asked to bring this up at their upcoming board meetings and report back in February. Kurt proposed a budget amendment if we were to move to in-person meetings to adjust for any additional costs that would come along. So I think that we need to stop at this point and talk about this, moving that Friday meeting to third Thursday, and now we want to go to the fourth Thursday.
Was that the new president's idea, or where did it come from and why?
Well, there was a lot of discussions. I think it came from a variety of different people. I think it has to do with the other boards' meeting dates. And so it was real close to the other ones, and they would not be able to go to their particular board meeting and then have information to come back to OPUDA, et cetera, et cetera. And so now it kind of put us on the other end of it, because we'll have our meeting after. So nobody's going to be made whole.
Or we'll have our meeting shortly after.
Yeah.
OPUDA.
So anyway, Roger, any problems?
Here to support.
Okay. That's very nice of you. Okay, any comments from you guys? I don't care.
6 of one, half dozen the other for me.
I don't care either. And if the majority want to do that, that's fine. So we'll give them that information. Pass it on.
Connie hopefully take some notes because she's the voting delegate.
Oh, yeah. Connie, what do you think? Oh, she can't respond, so I guess that's
Got the text down.
yeah. Okay. I'll move on then to the next section. It says, Sarah Klein reports that as of 12/31, our net income has a loss of about $10,000, which is not a good deal. Next section, Jeff Griffin reports that all PUDs need to have their OSHA 300 forms posted as OSHA will be looking for. Sarcasm is good. BPA reports. Claire reported about the metering issues and all the efforts BPA is doing to correct the problem. Her biggest concern is the validation of data, and she does not have any sense of whether there is a solid plan in place to test the validity. Claire understands they're running out of grace with customers and apologizes. The water is looking good, but it's still January. Okay. Roger, anything else to add to that?
Just side commentary, both directors Jacobson and Karp are okay with the UDA meeting date time change, or date change. And I shared my extreme displeasure with the billing scenario at Bonneville. And Chris and I just had a little eye contact that it's kind of universal amongst us that, yes, having functional billing with our energy provider is critical.
That is a boondoggle.
Especially before EIM.
Mr. President, when did they say they wanted to change that?
I assume it's going to be, well, as soon as all the utilities report back, they'll probably change it the next month, whatever that is.
Like March
or April, probably.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, ladies, now's the time that if you want to take a break and go, I'd suggest go.
Fun while you can.
Yeah.
Not gender specific, anyone can go.
Thank you for coming.
Yes, thanks for your presentations and stuff.
Well done.
Okay, let's move on then to board effectiveness checklist. So I guess the purpose of this is just to determine whether or not we want to get back on the same course we've been ignoring and continue with the evaluation of our general manager through this checklist process. Right?
I don't think that was the accurate assessment.
Okay, well,
This is your self-assessment.
Yeah, and I don't think it's.
It says board performance and review,
yeah.
right there on a.
I think it's us,
Like
boss.
directed to the general manager to accomplish, that's a different statement, but we should probably not talk
You
about
could
it.
help us.
Glad to help.
Well, I
Go
don't,
with Jim. Jim's smiling. Yeah, he wants in.
I don't see any dates. When are we supposed to have this done by?
So basically, I've had a tickler on my computer that every end of the year, we bring this before the board. The last time we actually went through this process was 2018.
Oh.
In 2019, with assistance from SDAO, a consultant, we went through this pretty, way more in-depth evaluation. And so, but this is what we had used before that. So I wanted to bring it back to see if you guys wanted to bring it forward. So I would be remiss if I didn't bring this before you guys, because this has been our normal practice. It's just with COVID hitting in 2020 and 2021, this didn't happen.
If you're open to input from the general manager, it would be a good practice to have before you receive new board members, if there were to be board members after this next election cycle. That way you're current before you have new members.
Right. Mm-hmm. I agree. I think these are good to go through. I do not like some of the things on there as I read through it again. You know, you just gotta take the good with the bad or eliminate those.
It gives us at least a baseline, and then I see that as more of a guide than guiding principle. It's just like it's just a base.
And it is a good base, I think. Good overall sound base, So we will proceed then. Is that what I'm hearing you guys?
I think we should.
I'd like to put a date on it.
Yeah, so typically what has happened is, so the board gives the direction, so I'll send it out to you guys. We'll have a date that you need to fill it out and return it to me. And then I compile all of your 5 comments, because there is ways to comment other than just checking, you agree or whatever. And then, so if you wanted to, if you wanted marching orders to have this back next month, we could just have a short turnaround. Keep in mind, it is a short month compared to March. But anyway, so you just give me some direction when you want, if you want to have it back in March, I'll just give you a quick turnaround and close it out and get it back.
What do you guys think? I think we need to do it right away too.
That's fine with me.
Let's get on it.
Okay, so
Get it.
bring this back in March and for us to discuss.
Send it out immediately.
I will.
They will bring it back in.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
That one we can do online, or we need to print it out.
Actually, I will try to make it as a fillable form. Is that, I'll send it as a PDF.
And Director Carter concurs.
But, yeah, that's more expedient, I think. Okay, approval of board expense forms. That's been kind of a boondoggle for a while. And we're just kind of looking for an easy way, because with all the Zoom meetings, for example, tomorrow and the next day, us getting, our reimbursement forms in and stuff, and sometimes people don't show up for those, and there's 1 or 2 always being not signed. And Kathy runs around here trying to get our signatures and stuff, and it's a pain in the rectal orifice, quite. And so, well, how can we expedite this? Can we give somebody on staff the authority to be the second signature on those reimbursement forms? Is that a solution, Roger?
It it shouldn't be me because I'm your direct report. So if you self-submit that you attended said item, we know that you were there or not because you filled this out. You submit your timesheet to Kathy. She enters your time and Cindy approves it. So we have a check and balance. I'm comfortable, and we can refine this to make sure I'm not crossing a procedure or a policy anywhere, that if you sign it that you attended, you're filling out the form, Kathy initials it as she enters your time, and Cindy approves it, because we know whether you were there or not. Right. That leaves us an audit trail and allows you guys to have some governance over no one submitting things that aren't true.
There's only about 3 areas we're going to do it. That's our PPC. It is the PUDA. It can be when we're doing educational things that either you completed or you didn't, because they wouldn't send you the certificate. So it's pretty obvious that you did it.
Right.
It's not a carte blanche, anything and everything. It's really just a very small area.
So as long as there's multiple checks, and to me, that's multiple checks.
That's the separation of duty and internal control.
Right, right. But you're self-submitting, we're inserting the time, and it's getting approved by another staffer, and it's not your direct report, which is me.
Does council have any issues with it?
No, I think that sounds very appropriate.
So can I inject one thing? So with the, when we get, we have a change in our job applications or wage, could we also do that? So let's say Howard sends me his time, but there's no second signature. Could I forward that to another?
You are the second signature.
But no, but if I wasn't a second, could I forward that to like Roger Howe, and he would forward it back saying, I approve it? Could that be part of it? Kind of like what we do with our pay increases.
You're talking about PAC forms.
Yeah.
That's an internal control that we have. That way there's a paper trail. You and I will take this offline and make it not a science project. And their signature that they attended, we have verification that they attended. You're the time submitter and Cindy's the approver. We're good. We have check and balance and audit trail.
Okay, perfect.
Good, good. Great solution.
Good job.
Okay. I'm going to add a couple of things, if I may, that are not on the agenda. Just assuming there was if you read Danelle's email a few days ago, she basically gave us a copy of a resolution 22X, and the sponsors are the Oregon Munis, Northwest Public Power Association, NRU, Washington Public Utility Districts Association, Oregon People's OPUDA, and Idaho Consumer-Owned Utilities Association, Benton Public Utility District, Cowlitz Public Utility District, Franklin Public Utility District, City of Richland. And this is in support of, quote, hydropower, the federal Columbia River power system, and opposing breach of the lower Snake River dams. This is outstanding. I think I've been waiting for a long time to see this kind of an effort to stand up to the folks that we're talking about in situations that we're talking about earlier in the meeting. So if you haven't read that, go back in your emails. I got a copy here too. Yeah, I've got an extra copy, but
well, if it's okay with you, President Gonzer, that's the American Public Power Association's resolution, and those are the agencies that are adopting it. We'll include it to our minutes, and perhaps we should do that as well for our own organization after hearing your action tonight. Okay, resolve of our resolution of our own.
good. Yeah, and the last, I'll pass around, the last two I highlighted, and that the APPA comes out very succinctly, and there's no question where public power is standing on this issue. And that's part of the issue that we're talking about before, with all the lying and craft going on with the damage. Okay, The other thing is, I have a crazy buddy of mine, and quite brilliant, really. But he sent me a publication entitled "The Hard Math of Minerals for Clean Energy." This is outstanding. And it talks and does a summary with specific sources cited about the cost of using electricity the way that it's being proposed now and how they can get it. And so I talked to Kathy, I sent that information, and I had her eliminate some of the folks this came from, just for good sake of doing it. And anyway, read this, and I suggest that staff might want to take a look at this too. It is really, I got an extra one here for one of you guys want to just pass around a little bit.
Power Resources has received it, and I'll send it to the rest of the.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So that really, I think very specifically and succinctly lets you know what we're getting into with the directions that we're being forced into regarding EV and wind, and solar in particular. Okay. Comment? You look like you're going to say something.
Monday, I attended the Western Energy Institute annual meeting where I sit on the board, and many of the presentations from the different member entities, whether they're a gas company in Canada to an energy company, consumer or investor owned in the West, somewhere in the Western Interconnection from Montana to Arizona to California. The primary objectives of many of these organizations, or their primary strategic initiative, or at least in their top three, is their decarbonization goals. Those of us that are fortunate enough to be preference customers of the Bonneville Power Administration, where over 95% of our resource stack is carbon-free, reliable hydropower that is lower cost than everyone else's. We don't have that as a primary issue. We want to support smart electrification of our systems for our customers, just recognizing that that is still a value of some of our customers. So whether that means electrifying their transportation or ensuring that they have electric sourced heat or cooling, that's their individual desire, and recognize that those same people are also voters and have supported these policies being put in place without maybe fully understanding or appreciating the physics behind it or the unintended consequences. I think the article that you shared out really identifies a lot of those unintended consequences when it comes to the total carbon footprint of battery technology or some energy storage technologies, recognition that non-dispatchable renewable resources like some wind or some solar, we can't tell them when to turn on and off, unlike a generator at a hydro station, but that is just one of the many sources of energy in the West and across the nation and the world. We recognize at the end of the day that our values are our values as listed on the wall, and that our customers care. You guys have heard me ad nauseum. I'm a guy who likes to fish and have clean hydropower, and they do coexist, but neither is perfect. And recognizing what that means to our customer owners, the people that pay our salaries or vote you guys in, we represent all of them. And I'm very appreciative of this board's willingness to have those hard conversations in the boardroom, where you know that it's not just a economics conversation, it's also a physics conversation, and it's also a biology conversation, and it's finding all those balanced needs. Today we were notified by our Bonneville rep that direct funding of the hydro projects in the Willamette Valley has ceased because there is an unknown cost component to meeting the biological opinion and requirements of those Willamette Valley projects that are primarily there for flood control. But hydro's been the one primarily paying for it all, and that means us through rates. And as much as we love the federal system, and we do, and we cherish it, but it has increased 30% in cost over the last 10 years, and that cost has to be borne by our customers, because that's why we exist, right? We're not a for-profit organization. So the regional work that we do, much like the work that you approved tonight on supporting the Northwest River Partners, and I'll disclose again that I am on that board, so thank you. It's important work to protect our region. If not but for the low-cost clean hydro that we have here, we would not have the load growth that we have experienced and the benefits that we can provide back to our community. So that's worth fighting for. I'm just very appreciative of you guys that are willing to fight. So thank you for that. I know that wasn't necessarily what you asked, but it's all connected for me.
Okay, we appreciate that.
When we attract staff and retain staff, it's folks that want to do this work on the public's behalf, and I'm very appreciative.
As I mentioned, my buddy is on, he's an elected official, let me just say. And he has dealt with the Washington governor. His board has dealt with the Washington governor, and they proposed a huge reduction of natural gas process, which would also reduce carbon significantly. And they got it all the way to the governor's office. And the first time around, the governor said, I will support this en masse. Okay? Second time through, politics got involved. And I'm not at liberty to tell you what those politics were, but they were dirty. And the project went away. Been 1,000 jobs for the ones that 1,000 jobs. Reduce climate issues and everything else. All because of a far left leaning. Pretty sad. Enough of stories. Okay, gentlemen, I think, and ladies. H is done.
Unless that was the miscellaneous.
I don't know if there is any miscellaneous, but
No, that's just the.
we already did the dates. Okay, anything else come before the board? This is, okay, meeting's over. This is a strange feeling tonight.
Again, have a nice time. Thanks for showing up.
See you guys.
We'll be signing off.
You can go back and watch the whales or whatever you were watching.